Welcome to the Socialette podcast, where we empower you with the marketing know-how you need to create the business of your dreams. I'm your host, Steph Taylor, and I'm a marketing nerd, Shiraz lover, and passport stamp collector. Join me as I dive into all things small business marketing and deliver them to you in bite-sized, fluff-free lessons every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Let's get learning. Hey, welcome back to Socialette Podcast. This is episode 145. I've been chatting a little bit about branding on the podcast lately, but I'm not really an expert on the topic. So I thought I'd bring in somebody who knows a heck of a lot more about branding than I do. Today's podcast guest is the queen of branding herself, Tess Robinson. Tess is the owner and creative director of Smack Bang Designs, a Sydney-based branding agency. She started Smack Bang at only 22 years old, but just talking to her, it's pretty easy to see why she's been so successful. In today's episode, we're chatting a bit about how she built Smack Bang Designs from the ground up. We dive deep into the world of branding and what it can do for your business, and we also chat a little bit about building a team. Let's dive in. Hi Tess, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Steph.
So Tess, I've been following your journey pretty closely for, probably 3 years now, pretty much since I started in business. But for my listeners who don't know who you are or what you do, tell us, what do you do?
Yeah, perfect. So I run a design and branding agency called Smack Bang Designs. And we're celebrating our 8th birthday in May.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, 8 years of hard yakka. But yeah, so we work with clients of all different sizes, all different industries as well.
Yeah.
We try to keep our portfolio intentionally diverse.
Yeah.
And yeah, we work with clients all around the world, and I feel very, very #blessed to do what I do. I have an amazing team, and yeah, we have a lot of fun.
That's amazing. So 8 years, that's pretty amazing. How did you get to be where you are?
God, how long do you have? I started the business when I was 22, and I think that with that, came a lot of naivety, and I didn't have any fear, so I just kind of went for it. And I did a lot of work for very cheap, almost free.
Just portfolio building stuff?
100%. Yeah. Just building my network and connections and stuff. And then, just like any business, you just put one foot in front of the other, and eventually it becomes something that you can call a business.
Take it day by day.
Yeah, day by day, project by project. And I've always, worked really super hard, and not only just hard, but really intentionally as well. So, making sure that the business is growing in the direction that I want, not just growing.
I loved, actually, you sent out an email the other day about how it's not luck, and I just loved that because it's so true. How often people say, you're lucky that you can work for yourself, you're lucky you can work from anywhere. And,
it's certainly not luck.
No.
And as I said in that email, I was I feel like that's, the word luck is just so synonymous with randomness, and I think, there's nothing about building a business that is random. It's such a conscious choice every day to show up and give your business your best self and make intentional decisions. And I think that that's certainly been the case. I mean, there's obviously good fortune and there's privilege, but I think that those two things are very different to luck.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And you've just had a baby, so
you can tell by the bags under my eyes. I'm glad this is a podcast.
To our listeners, Tess actually doesn't have any bags under her eyes. I think
you
mine
can
will work. But so, what does a day in your life look like at the moment now that you've got a baby in your life?
At the moment, there is absolutely no consistency day to day. So little Dylan is only 4 months old. So she is, just learning to sleep in, certain routines and things like that. So it's very much just trial and error at the moment, and I'm just, surrendering to all of that. I at heart, I'm a total control freak, but I know that
we all kind of are, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I know that this is, certainly not the time to be a control freak. This is the time of adjustment and just kind of surrendering to that. So I work from home. I mean, I'm really lucky. My partner also runs a business, and so we're both really flexible. So we've divided the week in half. and so far we haven't needed a nanny or any kind of external care, but I'm sure that will change soon. And so I pretty much work 3 days a week, and 2 of those days I work from home, and 1 I come into the studio here, which we are today. And my role is very dependent on where the business needs me at any given time. I sit kind of across all of the creative, I sit across the marketing. I'm obviously, as the owner and director, across all the kind of financial side of things. But I'm really lucky. If anyone has ever read anything that I've ever said about, it's about my team. I have the most insane team, led by a very talented general manager. So she kind of keeps everything running smoothly, and I get to spend enough quality time with my little girl.
That's amazing. And it's you're in a beautiful office. Like, the space is just so inspiring.
Well, we moved here at the end of last year, and I was literally renovating this place 9 months pregnant. So it's not finished by any stretch of the imagination, because I was just like, okay, I could probably stop getting high on paint fumes now. It's not great for the baby, but we love it. It feels really nice, and we're going to be here a long time, I think.
Yeah. So just shifting back to like the early days in business, because a lot of my listeners are like in the first maybe year or 2 of their business. How did you get those first few clients? Like, I know you said you didn't charge very much, but like, where did you find the clients?
It was all just through friends of friends. I think you start out with your little circle, and the biggest thing for me was always do great work, because great work sells itself. If you do a brilliant job, that work and that client will bring you 2 more clients, and it kind of expands from there. But like, I was 22, so I was like young, and I had all the energy in the world for socializing and what I would put in inverted commas, networking.
I hate that word.
Yeah, exactly. And now that stuff just makes me tired thinking about it. But when you're 22, you have all the energy, and I think, like, honestly, that's the biggest piece of advice I have, is like that age-old saying of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is so bloody true.
So true.
And then treat those people that you do work with like absolute VIPs, do a killer job, and it will like for sure lead to more work.
What are your tips then for like exceeding customer or client expectations?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think always giving your best self, like, being really true to who you are, being really honest with them as to your capabilities. Like, you never want to, overpromise something that you can't deliver, and being really hyper aware of what their expectations are, having a really clear brief to begin with, so that you both start on the same page, and then you can surprise and delight, because their expectations are here, and then you can meet them above that. But if their expectations are well above what you'll ever be able to deliver, then there's obviously an incongruence there. But it's a good question. I think it's something that we're always working on at Smack Bang. Like, how can we do better?
Yeah, and I think it's just so important, because like, as you said, word of mouth is such a good way to market your business, and we're so hung up on like, oh, let's get more Instagram followers, and let's throw up some Facebook ads, and then we don't actually think about like that word of mouth element, or like who element.
Totally. And I think it's just like, that is the crux of marketing, and then all these other platforms are kind of word of mouth on steroids, you know what I mean? Like, your Instagram has a reputation that is derived from word of mouth. It's just in a completely new medium. So
so true.
It's so important.
So as the business grew from being just you to having a bit of a team, and now quite a big team, how have you prioritized working on the business versus in the business?
Another great question. I love these. I feel like I was really committed to always working on the business. So I had an amazing business coach that also held me accountable to it. But I want to say like the first few months, I always designated Tuesdays. Tuesdays was my day where I didn't touch any client work, and it was always, like at the start, it was a lot around like learning. So it was kind of, experimenting, like figuring out what the frick to do with finances. And then a big part of my Tuesdays was marketing the business. So it was like, okay, cool. How am I showing up to the world? What can I do to expand the brand into the, types of clients that I want to be in front of? I was just really strict with it. I just, no ifs or buts. I never scheduled client meetings. I never scheduled client work on Tuesdays. And I really, really enjoyed Tuesdays. And that made it exponentially easier to work on the business because I enjoyed it.
Did you ever feel guilty for it?
Never.
That's so good.
Never.
So many people do.
I think that it is the most important work though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I was really lucky that I had a mentor that, probably encouraged that and, really instilled that in my mind. But if you're not working on that, the client work will dry up. And,
then
you don't have a business.
That's so true. And like as business owners, we're pretty prone to having like millions of different ideas. How do you pick which ideas are good ones?
Oh God, I'm still really bad at that stuff. Just ask my general manager. So I was chatting to her the other day and I said, I'm really good at throwing everything on the wall and you're really good at seeing what sticks. They call me the confetti queen downstairs because I just like walk around and like bursting little things, confetti ideas around. I think learning from what has worked in the past is really good to keep you in check. Like, if you just walk around throwing confetti ideas everywhere and not actually measuring or tracking how each of those have worked, you're gonna it's kind of that age old making the same mistake twice kind of thing. Like I always aim to learn from every single thing I do, and so that kind of holds me accountable to not just doing everything. I'm like, okay, well that didn't work last time, so I don't think that similar activity is going to work. I might change it in this way, or this idea is better. Just from past experience.
That's pretty good. And I think like it's quite easy as business owners to like start ideas, or like when you're stuck in something that you're not enjoying, or something that just becomes like work, and then suddenly you see a sparkly idea and you're like, I'm just going to go on that one, and then while you're chasing that idea you get another sparkly idea, and
it's so true. And you really need to I think I don't know whether this is just me, but I do find with entrepreneurs that we're very good at moving on. So you start something and then you lose interest and then you move on to the next thing. Before you know it, you've created this whole trail of mess behind you and nothing's actually finished, nothing's having impact. You're having a hell time because you just in the genius zone of these projects where you don't have to actually execute. But I think it takes great discipline to, stop, take measure, finish what you started, and make sure that you're having impact. That's one of my key focuses this year is now I have, far less time than I ever have had with little Dylan, that I'm very conscious of what I'm doing needs to have impact. So really thinking things through before I start them.
Would you say that's your word of the year then?
My word of the year is actually ease.
Ease.
I just want
interesting. Yeah. Mine was intention.
That was mine 2 years ago.
Really?
Intention.
Did it work?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It made me stop and consider things.
Yeah.
And take pause.
Yeah. I've sort of started deciding that everything I do this year it's not just going to be the sparkly squirrels. It's actually going to be intentional stuff, because last year was the year of squirrels.
Yeah. Fireworks.
Yes. Awesome. So one of the things I really want to chat about is branding, because you're like the branding queen. So just to start from scratch, what's your definition of branding?
Oh, I like that. I think a brand is how a business shows up in the world. It's, it's how you're presenting yourself in every kind of medium, every kind of, way, shape or form. And it's how people describe you. It's your reputation. And it's the story that you're telling to the world.
I love that. So which do you think is more important then, the visual or the non-visual stuff?
Oh gosh. I think you can't have one without the other, of course.
Yeah.
And I think that, it depends what we've slot into each of those categories. But I think non-visual is crucial, because the visual essentially is, I feel, the secondary step. You can't just whip up a pretty picture and expect to have a booming business. You need to actually have a clear strategy, and that's built through the non-visual. And then the visual communicates that to the world.
So it's basically, it's not about getting a logo. No. It's about having a logo that communicates
the strategy that you've already came up with. So I feel like it's step one and then step two. And I don't think that you can just stop at step one, because no one will ever see or hear of your brand.
Does it kill you when you see people, like, I don't know if you hang out in Facebook groups at all, but like in business Facebook groups where people are like, which one of these?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I haven't seen it in Facebook groups. I get emails all the time. What? Hey, Tess, which logo do you prefer? I'm like, one, I'm sorry. I would love to reply to you, but I clearly don't have time. And two, I have no idea what the hell brief you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Like, who is your target market? What are your goals? What's your vision? Like, what are you trying to do to your industry?
Yeah.
You know, like a little logo like this, like red or blue. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Oh, that, yeah. Even like...
Comes back to being intentional.
Yeah. Like, I didn't really understand the importance of branding until maybe about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And like when I had a branding session with you, I think it was like this time last year.
Yeah, it was.
And after that, went and did a complete rebrand,
Yeah.
and everything changed. Like,
Yeah.
it just made the biggest difference.
And you saw a difference in the clients
Oh,
that you were
100%.
attracting? Yeah.
100%.
How cool. It's honestly so powerful. I always knew, obviously, you know, like being so obsessed with branding, I always knew that it would have an impact externally, but what I've found to be really surprising is that branding actually has such an impact internally to your business as well. Like, it keeps you, like, you have a north, like you have a kind of center in your business. You always know where you need to be because you've built this brand strategy. And then also when you're building out a team, like, you know who to hire because you know who can embody the brand and, you know, like, fit within the values. And
so it like shapes the culture, I guess.
100%. They know where to fit. They know how to, you know, deliver each day because they understand the brand.
That makes so much sense, and I think it's probably something that most business owners overlook at the start because they're like, you're not, when you're thinking of your brand values, if you even think of your brand values at all, like as a new business owner, you're not thinking about how it's going to shape the culture when you start to hire people.
Totally, but it's it's huge. It's been such a good learning for me.
Yeah, so one of your blog posts that I was reading the other day was about how good marketing starts with good branding. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by this?
Yeah, so it's always really hard to draw the line between branding and marketing, I find. And I think, like, for me, branding is about the story that makes up who you are, and marketing is about selling that story. So essentially, like, branding is your foundation and marketing is your action. I don't think that you can market a business without good branding. Because you're just taking action with no foundation. It's kind of like
hard as well.
Yeah, totally. Like, what the hell story are you selling?
Yeah. Because people aren't buying that product.
No, that's it. They never buy the product. They're buying the experience that that product can give them, or the story behind that product, or the person. Exactly. You know, it's never about the product.
Yeah, like in the past, I've worked with clients who haven't had strong branding, and it's been really tough trying to market whatever it is that they're selling because.
It's kind of like, I always describe it as like when you build a house, you need really strong foundations.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to just like whip up 4 flimsy walls and then throw some really pretty cushions around and spend all this money on like the styling of the inside. Like, the house is going to fall down. Yeah. And I always think about the branding as, you know, the strong foundations of a house, and then the marketing is like, you know, what you do to kind of lure people into that house and, you know, the experience that's had within it.
That makes so much sense. And I guess, like, if you've got poor branding, then you can throw as much money at marketing as you want,
and you know it's going to work. Yeah.
No, like, if you've got bad branding.
Oh, sorry, bad branding.
And you're spending all that money on it, it's like
you're throwing it in a void.
Yeah, putting water in a bathtub with no plug.
100%, exactly.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what is the difference between a good brand and a great brand? Like, what differentiates them?
Oh God, there's a list as long as Gravel Chang. I feel like, to begin with, it needs to be and I hate this word with a passion, but it needs to be authentic.
Yeah.
You can't just slap on a story. And when I talk about brand, I always pair it with talking about a story, because that's essentially, like, branding is storytelling.
Yeah.
So that story that you're telling the world needs to be your story and no one else's. So that, you know, like, if you're presenting to the world with a story that you've just kind of like heard on the grapevine, or you thought like that brand did a cool, you know, they're doing well, so I'm just going to steal that kind of vibe, it never lasts. You know, to build a sustainable brand, you need to have a story that really is true to you, and then present that story with like creativity and interest and fill a gap. Like,
Yeah, it's so underrated. Just filling a gap.
It's so underrated, and being confident to be yourself, through your brand. Like, if you're hiding away from what truly makes you tick, I feel like you never really present the full story, and people don't really relate emotionally. I think a brand, in essence, is an exercise in having an emotional connection with your customer, and they can't have an emotional connection with you if you're not authentic, if you're not telling your own story, etc., etc.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, one of the things I've noticed is with a lot of new businesses, if they don't have the money to spend getting a proper brand strategy done, they sort of start to not copy, but like emulate the competitors 100%. A little bit. Do you think, what's the line between drawing inspiration and full-on copying them?
I guess, it's really hard because there is just so much in the world. Like, I truly don't, like, it's probably a really pessimistic thing for me to say, but I don't think that there is anything original anymore. Like, there is just essentially too much in the world. But for me personally, my practice around that is to, like, I work with my blinkers on. Yeah. So I never look at, like, other design agencies.
Yeah.
My general manager, her role is to keep tabs on our competitors and ensure that we're never kind of stepping on toes or, that there's never any kind of murkiness around that. But that's not my job, and I never want to look at our competitors because I just want to do work that's original to us, and communicate a brand that feels, congruent to who we all are. But I'll happily look at, brands that are doing amazingly in different industries. Like, I draw inspiration from beauty brands or, homewares brands, but never direct competitors, because I think that once you see something, you can't unsee it. And
that's so
that
true.
Can kind of mess with your direction.
It terrifies me, like, sometimes when I'm writing copy or something, I'm like, like, did I hear this somewhere else? Like, did I come up with that, or is that someone else's?
Did as well, but I think it's the intent behind it as well. Like, it's so great to say that because it obviously shows how conscious you are of not being a copycat.
Well, I mean, like, having had my entire website, like, ripped off recently, I'm like, now I'm even more conscious. I'm sure it's happened to you.
Multiple times, and it's frustrating, but they do say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and like, I'm just like, sure, I'll take that and not think too much into it because it just pisses me off way too much.
I know, they like ripped off even brand values, exact word for word brand values about like what, and one of them was like marketing honestly.
Oh
which
my
I thought the irony of that. I was like, that's just too good.
I have a funny story. I wrote a blog post. It was probably 2 years ago, and in it was like kind of my journey becoming an entrepreneur, and I mentioned the fact that when I was 4 years old, I sold belly button dusters at a market. Like, literally these pipe cleaner stupid things. I don't know how my mother allowed me to go to the markets and sell these things, like $2 each or something. But there was a girl that was ripping off all of my copy on her own website. She posted a blog that was, no joke, like, copy and paste, probably changed 4 lines in it, and said that she sold belly button dusters at a market when she was 4 years old. I was like, this is either a huge coincidence, but I really can't imagine that any other little idiot was selling belly button dusters at a market. I was like,
set up the Google alert.
Come on, totally.
What else to copy?
It's a great idea.
So one of the things that you've like written quite a bit about is consistency and how that's so important. How can a brand ensure that everything they're doing is consistent? Like, it's all well and good, you get your style guide from your designer and then you take that, but then you've got to make sure that everything you do is consistent. How do you do that?
I guess it's just as simple as like staying woke. Like, stay awake to what you're doing every day, and take time out. For instance, like on a Tuesday, if you were to do what I did and have like Tuesdays working on the business, just like maybe it's once every 3 months or once every 6 months, whatever feels right for you. Like, just look at everything you do objectively. And that means like going through your business with a fine-tooth comb. It's like, how do you answer the phone? What's your voicemail like? What are your Instagram captions like? What's your email autoresponder like? What, like
everything.
How are you showing up in the world? Because that entire thing is branding. People get a style guide and they're like, great, my brand's done. I'm like, 5% of your brand's done. You've got your fonts, your logos, and your colors. Like, there's this whole, like, your brand is essentially your entire business presentation, and that comes down to like what you wear to meetings. So
like if somebody hasn't got the budget to go and get like a full brand strategy done, they've just got the visuals done by a designer.
Yeah.
What would you recommend they start with? Like there's a lot there, from like voicemail to meeting room to like how your meeting rooms look to all of that.
I generally recommend our clients to map out an entire customer journey. So from when it's such a cathartic experience.
Big job though.
You need coffee. So, and I do this regularly with the team. And when I say regularly, probably yearly. I think that's all we need at this point. But from when a client first interacts with you, so maybe they call your phone, maybe they leave a message on your website, maybe they email you directly. What are they presented with at that step? The next step. And then you literally go through and you need to break it right down to catch all the little nitty-gritty details that pop up along the way. And map that out on a big piece of butcher's paper, review every single step, whether it's like an EDM template, as I said, like a voicemail, how you're showing up in meetings, the bloody coffee that you're offering in meetings, all of that. And then just start from the top and work your way through. Everything needs to be a 10-hour plan. Yeah, take like 4 months off. No, I think it's a work in progress. And, as I said, it's kind of like that idea of staying awake to what's happening around you, like we're always looking at our business objectively. Like, even this morning I just read an EDM that we had sent out. Oh, that font's really small. You know what I mean? It's like such a, it's that email has been going out for ages. I've just realized like that font's a bit small, and just being able to action that and being nimble enough to constantly pick these things up and change them as you go. And then, as I said, doing an audit maybe once a year and just like really reviewing everything in detail.
Yeah. So just basically being a perfectionist.
100%. OCD is none.
So then, do you think that a brand's like ever done and dusted?
No,
can you change these things?
Never.
Yeah.
I'm actually writing a blog post on this at the moment, but
great.
A brand is constantly evolving, and it's a work in progress, and it should be, because the world isn't a stagnant place. Like, your customers are changing all the time. You're changing all the time.
Yeah.
What's needed in the world is changing all the time. So, of course, like, you want to always tweak and refine your brand and make sure that it's living up to what your expectations are presently. Which is a constant work in progress, but it's the best investment you can make. It's what people come to you for.
But then how do you know if you're just being like, if you're just chasing a sparkly squirrel or chasing a trend?
I think asking, and I wouldn't ever recommend like changing the goalposts every 2 months, like, okay, we're this brand, no, now we're this brand, no, now. It should be,
sounds a bit like what I've done in the last year.
A gradual evolving process. Unless, of course, it needs to be drastic, then by all means be drastic, but don't be drastic every 2 months. That's just bloody confusing. I think it's reviewing what's working as well. Like, maybe you change the goalposts drastically, and as you said, you got all these amazing clients that you really wanted.
Oh no, but I've since changed them drastically again.
Oh god, don't tell me this. Yes, I think it's just making sure that you're measuring and tracking what works, and doing things intentionally, like we spoke about. Don't just change things for the sake of changing it. Change things because you've done your research and you figured that wasn't working and that this needs to be experimented with. And but also, like, there's only a finite amount of time in the world, so it's being realistic with how you're going to spend that resource.
Yeah, and like, to be fair, so my big change was going from Wild Bloom to working under like a personal brand, and that was because that was a shift away from client work towards more teaching people what to do. And I just found that it worked. It made more sense for it to be under my own brand. But,
absolutely. And like, that just goes to show that that's what felt. And this sounds so cliche, like, I'm not trying to be Tony Robbins, but like, that just goes to show that's what feels right for you, like, feels true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're getting the direct feedback loop that is saying, yes, this is working, then brilliant. Stay with that until it doesn't work.
Yeah. So one of the big things that I found with the Wild Bloom rebrand was that people started to resonate a lot better, and I got a lot of feedback that was like, oh, you like understand businesses. What would you recommend as your top tips for brands to resonate better with potential customers or clients?
Yeah, I think being human, and that's goes to show with what you've just done is really interesting, because I even saw with the transition that you've done is you've gone from looking more like a bit of an agency or a studio to looking like you. Like, you're very much the front and center of that brand, and I'm sure that's working.
Tough.
It's tough, but I bet it's working really well, because people love to resonate with, as we've said, people buy from people. They don't buy products. Sorry, we're just pouring water.
Yeah.
That's a weird sound to have. So yeah, being human and showing up as yourself, I think, is really important.
That makes sense. And I guess, just showing people that you get where they're coming from.
Yeah, that emotional kind of...
You're not like a big business that's way up here when you're trying to market to like small customers and you're trying to say... And they don't feel like you understand them.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good exercise as well, to constantly be putting yourself in your client's shoes and saying, like, what would I think about me if I was that person?
True.
How am I being perceived? Because, that in essence is brand.
Yeah.
That reputation piece.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking like, my brand doesn't resonate, or my brand's not consistent, or I don't know, like they just hate their brand, would you recommend that they start by doing a complete rebrand or a refresh?
It's a hard question without knowing, more details, but I guess it would depend on what their client loyalty is like.
Yeah.
I think you've always got to be careful if you've built up quite a database of, not even just customers, but an audience that understands who you are and what you do. It is somewhat dangerous territory, and I'm so sure that you kind of feared, there was a little bit of fear in like a drastic change, because you're like, oh, will I lose a whole bunch of people? And I think the question you have to ask then is like, am I losing the people that I want to lose?
Yeah. And there's a lot of confusion around it as well.
Totally. Yeah. So I think it's like, you just need to be really clear on what your goals are with the rebrand, and then you can kind of work, like reverse engineer it from there, in the sense of how far do I need to change it to reach those goals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think like one of the biggest challenges I had with the rebrand was communicating it to people.
Yeah.
And like I still get people being like, oh, Steph Taylor from Wild Bloom. I'm like, no, sorry guys. That one's been put to rest now.
Yeah. I actually wrote a blog post on that.
Oh, really?
Communicating a rebrand is great.
I can read that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one though. And we have clients, because the thing is, like, it's not a one size fits all kind of, like, a rebrand in every business is for a different purpose, therefore needs to have a different delivery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's so customized.
That makes so much sense. Amazing. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions for you around building a team, because I know that is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's pretty scary. Like, I know, like, I hired my first casual about a year and a bit ago, and it was really, really scary.
Yeah.
So who was the first person that you hired?
So back in the day, I hired a beautiful girl named Maria, and I hired her, I was probably 6 months into it, and she was just a contractor, which was a really nice foray into, being an employer. And so, it was quite flexible in that sense. She probably worked out to be about 3 days a week to begin with. And then from there, hired casual staff, and then built up, and now I have a team of about, on any given day, between 12 and 15. And 12 of those are full-time. And it's great. I think it is really scary, but if you want to have an impact, and I'm sure you've found this, if you want to stay in your genius zone and do the work that you love, and you want to have an impact on the world in whatever way, shape or form that is, it's really hard to go at it alone.
It is.
And it's also not, in my personal opinion, it's not that fun. Like, the fulfillment that I have got from having a team far outweighs the fear of feeding that many mouths every payroll.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's probably more fun than
100%.
working at home.
It's so nice. And with it comes, like, great responsibility, and responsibility that I don't take lightly, and it is like, it is a huge commitment, but also, like, if you hire the right people, they'll grow your business. It's such a you're getting what you put out kind of thing, and as I said, it is honestly the greatest fulfillment I get out of business is working with talented creative minds and, you know, just collaborating.
And like, as you said, it keeps you in your genius zone, because your genius zone probably isn't dealing with admin.
Yeah, exactly.
Invoicing people.
And therefore everyone thrives, you know, if everyone's playing in their lane, it just makes the whole business exponentially more amazing.
Definitely. So what are your secrets for hiring the right people?
I actually wrote a blog post. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but this blog post is coming out next week, so good timing.
Oh, good.
Building a team that feels like family, it's called, and it's just essentially like my top tips for what I think is the best process, like how I go about hiring. I think like I really place a lot of emphasis on my team and who I bring into this space, because essentially it is my livelihood. You know, like the people here are my livelihood. And I also take great responsibility in ensuring that they're, you know, really happy and secure in their jobs as well. So yeah, I hire purely based on gut. It's all about the, you know, like kind of filling a gap in the team. So what kind of dynamic do we need? What does this individual have to bring to the team, the family, rather than to the role? The role is secondary.
So it's like what's their magic, really?
Exactly, 100%. And how does that magic fit with the magic of the team itself?
Yeah, I love that.
And then my golden rule is hiring people with self-awareness and people that are really bloody comfortable in their own skin, because it is so easy to teach someone who is happy and content in who they are. It's really hard to get through to someone who has boundaries and walls up and insecurities, and you know, I just find that there's far more time and energy spent. So yeah, that's my golden rule, like grit, grace, self-awareness, and a fantastic attitude, people that are hungry. I love hiring people that are a little bit underqualified, but they're super hungry, because you just like can see their trajectory just go nuts. And that's like, as a boss, the most fulfilling thing is seeing your team grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like in the past, when I've worked in a role where like I was underqualified, it was such a good feeling. So I can imagine like that
works. You're the underdog. You're like, I'm going to prove that I can do this, and that's such a great energy.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
So what's been like the biggest hiring mistake that you've made along the way?
Ooh.
If you can share.
Well, back in the day, this is actually quite funny. When I first started, so prior to running Smack Bang Designs, I'd never stepped foot in a design agency. I had no idea what a staff organisation chart would look like for a design agency. And little to my knowledge, there are these things called account managers that keep the whole place running. And I was 22 and I was like, I just need designers. Like, I'm going to make a design agency. I just hire designers, right? So I hired like 4 designers or something. And so I had all these clients filtering all this work. There's like, you know, the clients at the top, all the designers down the bottom, and then this like really precarious middle point that was me, that was trying
the bottleneck.
I was the absolute bottleneck. I was in the way of my own business, and I was, you know, trying to filter this work in between, and you know, at the same time mentor all these designers, and so that was a huge mistake, and it took me like a while to correct that course. Had to bloody figure out what an account manager was to begin with, and then hire one. And
that
then
would have
changed.
That would have been a really tough hire as well, because like when you're thinking of hiring designers, you're like, oh well, this person, this is how much I'm paying this person. This is the productive output. Whereas like as an account manager, that's not
so true.
The productive output as much.
100%. Yeah, and also like I didn't know what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So again, I just hired on gut, and it turned out to be the biggest win ever, because that's Elodie, who's now my general manager. She was the first account manager that I hired, and now she pretty much runs this place. So
it's amazing.
Trust your gut, people. It never lies.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, at the end of every episode, I have a couple of questions that I ask everyone.
Hit me.
All right, so first question.
I'm sleep deprived, so this could be interesting.
The first one that I ask is, what advice would you give to your pre-business self? So 22-year-old Tess.
Don't forget to make a life for yourself while you're busy making a living.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so true. Like, because it'd be so easy just to hustle. And then you look up and you're like, oh, 5 years have gone.
Literally for the first, I reckon, 4 years, I was in pure hustle mode. And I was so lucky that I have an amazing partner who I've been with since I was 18, who stuck around through all of that. But my God, if I was him, I probably would have left.
But at the same time, like those 5 years of hustle, 4 years of hustle probably
set me up.
Like that's what set you up for what you've got
exactly.
now. So
it's definitely bittersweet. But I think like, you know, if I had got hit by a bus at the end of that 4 years, there would have been some regrets. Sorry to be morbid.
And next question, what has been your biggest whoops moment?
Probably that account management thing, because I got myself into a real pickle. I was completely exhausted, depleted. The business was suffering. And all I needed to fix was just hiring a bloody account manager.
Yeah. How did you figure out that you needed an account manager?
Research.
Yeah.
Just like into Google, what am I doing wrong? No. I spoke to a lot of people. I spoke to my mentor. I was just like, I'm the bottleneck. How do I get out of this? And came up with that solution.
Yeah, that's so true. And what has been your biggest growth moment?
I don't know. There have been so many, but I think if we talk about growth in terms of what I'm most proud of, I've just had 5 months off to bring my daughter into the world. And as a business owner, like it's such a feat. And I'm so proud of myself and of my team that I was able to set myself up to do that and to do it with, you know, like grace as well. Like I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I was like all that needed in the business. It felt really seamless, and I'm so grateful for my team for allowing that to happen.
That's so amazing, because I don't know, for me right now, like the thought of taking 5 months off, I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, exactly. And
everything would just go away.
Exactly, and I was like that for 8 years literally.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's probably like, if we talk about growth in terms of pride.
Well, you should be pretty proud of yourself for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tess. Tell us, where can our listeners find a little bit more about you and Smack Bang?
So we're Smack Bang Designs on Insta, and then smackbangdesigns.com. And my personal is just Tess _Robinson.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tess.
Thanks for having me.